So, you do the regular work on yourself because you want a better quality of being. Perhaps you meditate every day. You journal when problems arise to try to get a perspective on them so they're no longer problems but parts of the solution. But it still feels like you're not making any progress, that you still feel stuck, that the same kinds of problems in your relationships or in your job keep arising, that you still have this negative outlook that you can't jar yourself out of. Well, don't worry, it's not that you're doing anything wrong. In fact, if you relate to what's just been said and you're using some of those tools to change, then you're on the right track. By the end of this video, you'll learn that change comes slowly, and in learning how that change happens, you might become a little bit more compassionate towards the person you are today. So what does it mean to become a different person? What is the nature of change? Researchers have been circling this question for decades, and the honest answer is that becoming a different person is both more complex and more literal than it sounds. Start with an old puzzle. A wooden ship sails for decades. Over time, every plank rots and gets replaced, every rope, every sail, every nail. Eventually, not a single original piece remains. Is it still the same ship? The philosophers who first told this story weren't really talking about ships, they were talking about you. Your cells replace themselves, your opinions shift with new evidence and new pain. The person who chose your career, your relationships, your habits, may share your name and your memories, but almost nothing else about them physically or psychologically remains untouched. This is where an early theory of identity had something to say. It argued that what makes you, you over time isn't your body at all. It's memory. You are the same person as the child who learned to ride a bike, so the reasoning goes because you can remember doing it, a thread of recollection connecting each moment to the next, like beads on a string. It's a comforting theory, but it's also full of holes. Because memory is not a fixed archive, it edits itself. You forget entire years, you misremember conversations to protect your own self-image. Memory is dangerously unreliable. Your memories of past events change slightly every time you revisit them. The memory of an original event, over months and years, can change drastically from its first few recalls. If memory is the thread holding your identity together, that thread is frayed, rewritten, and occasionally invented outright. A later line of research pushed this further in the 20th century, and its conclusion is the one that tends to unsettle people the most. It argued that personal identity isn't really about being the same continuous self at all. It's about psychological connectedness, overlapping chains of memory, personality, and intention that link today's version of you to yesterday's and yesterday's to the day before. Enough links changed, this research suggested, and what you have isn't really one person persisting through time. It's a long relay race of closely related selves, each one handing something off to the next. That reframes the discomfort of realizing change might be needed. You are not betraying who you were by outgrowing them. You are growing. You are simply doing what every version of you has always done, handing something forward to whoever comes next. Which raises another question about whether the choice of direction you want to go actually has any bearing on who you become. If identity isn't fixed, if it's built moment to moment through choices, memories, and psychological threads, then how much of who you become is actually up to you? One perspective offers a blunt answer. It argues that human beings don't arrive in the world with a fixed nature waiting to be discovered. There's no blueprint hidden inside you, no essential self you eventually uncover like a buried statue. Instead, this view holds, you are built through action. Existence comes first, meaning and identity come after, shaped by what you actually choose to do. That idea can feel like freedom or like pressure depending on the day. If nothing about you is fixed in advance, then the anxious feeling of not recognizing your old self isn't a malfunction. It's evidence that the process is working exactly as it should. Still, this raises an obvious tension. If you're constantly changing, why does it feel like there's something underneath all of it that stays put? A tone, a way of noticing the world, a recurring pull towards certain values even after everything else has shifted. Psychologists studying personality across the lifespan have found something similar. Broad traits, like how open you are to new experience or how much you tend toward anxiety, show real stability over decades, even while specific beliefs, careers, relationships, and self-descriptions change dramatically. So perhaps the truth sits between the two extremes. Not a fixed self waiting underneath, and not a completely different person every few years either, but a slow-moving current, changing shape gradually enough that no single day feels like a break, and so slowly that the small, important changes happening don't register. This changes how you relate to your own past, not just how you argue about it in the abstract. The version of you who made that decision you now regret, who believed things you've since abandoned, who loved someone you no longer recognize loving. That version wasn't a defective draft of the real you. Following that same thread and chain of reasoning, they were simply an earlier connected link, working with whatever memories, pressures, and understanding they had at the time. And it changes how you relate to who you're becoming. Growth isn't a leaving behind some fixed essential identity you're supposed to be true to. Following that same logic, it's the entire point. You are not discovering who you really are underneath everything. You are building it, one choice at a time, the same way every version of you before this one did, happening even before the work of engaged self-awareness began. So, the next time an old photo, an old journal entry, or an old friend makes you wince at who you used to be, remember what that discomfort actually means. It isn't proof of your past imperfections, it's proof that the relay is still running, and that whoever you are becoming next hasn't finished arriving yet. You are not the person you were 5 years ago, and if you recognize this, then that's definitely a good thing. But while you keep changing, the journey might prove to be more about enjoying the person you are now until the next version quietly comes along.